The sun is out and it's beautiful, and I've been out running around taking care of some errands that I haven't been able to do the last several days. Well, the last 4 or 5 anyway. And so I'm going to show you how I'm going to do. So when I turned this upside right, I had to clean off a little bit around here because I put it on. I put the glaze on up with this upside down. Now this, I'm not going to put glaze right in this groove because that's the way the lid fits on, right? So I'm going to paint the inside of this and the inside of this, and then I'm going to start on these things. But just to show you the brush technique, I won't bore you with doing all of them on film, although there are some people who would watch every single foot of it and be perfectly happy. There are a lot of people that enjoy what's called ASMR videos, and they are good for people who are homebound, possibly, or who have some challenges emotionally or mentally. And sometimes it just helps them to just watch something that doesn't require any participation or no stress, but they're just kind of observing somebody else doing something, or maybe the voice of the person is soothing to them. And so they're called, I forget what ASMR stands for. Somebody will tell me in the comments probably, and that's fine. But sometimes that's helpful to people, and especially watching somebody make something. That's interesting to them too. Okay, so there's coat number 1 right inside, and notice when I did the edge, I just came straight up and out, and so that I don't have to clean that again, or if I do, I just a very low kind of cleaning. Let's see, can you still see that? This paper is recycled. It is advertising that comes in the mail. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a renewable source of recyclable material to help me in my pottery. Just so I'm getting my brush right up there so I don't get any in my, whoops, I just did. I just got a big blob right there. So I had a couple of cups of monkey picked oolong tea this morning, and and a couple of oatmeal cookies. They're kind of like biscuits, really, and healthy. And I took off for, let's see, where did I go? Oh, I needed a new squirt bottle. I can't believe, I mean, people usually have several around their house, but I guess I'm kind of hard on them. Mine developed a problem after I dropped it. And I guess it just dropped just the right way to break it. And it's an old one. I'm going to make sure I don't have any along that edge because I don't want, because I'll fire that in position, or what they call in situ. In situ, S-I-C-T, no, excuse me, S-I-T-U stands for situation. It's going to be situated just like that when it's fired. And so we say in situ. How's that for a little Latin for you? Or you could just say, fire it with the lid on, would ya? One time I went, so, okay, wait a minute, before I start that. I'm gonna mark, now I know I'm doing the insides of all of these, and so now I've done one coat of the inside, so I'm gonna put myself a little mark down here so I'll know, because if I get distracted and go off and do, excuse me, do something somewhere else and I come back to this, I'll be, I always think I'm gonna remember, but then sometimes I don't, and I can't remember how many coats I've done. And believe it or not, sometimes it's several days between, you know, life happens and you have to go do things, and so sometimes I don't get back to it just right away. Anyway, let's see, so this, I went to get a new squirt bottle, and actually it's not to use for pottery, although I did swap out the sprayer on it because I went to the dollar store and the bottle was okay. It was a nice little metal aluminum bottle, and it's actually pink. And I'm being real careful here. I'm going to move this one over. The bottle's actually pink, but the sprayer was terrible. So I had an extra sprayer from that one I broke, so I put that sprayer on it, and it works just fine. I want to see what I'm doing in there. There's a kind of a look. I'll see if I can get this there. So you can see I start at the bottom, and I like to cover the bottom of the pot really well, the very bottom, because that's where people put their spoon, the other end of their spoon, when they're putting sugar or whatever they put into their coffee or tea. And you don't want it to be rough. You want that spoon to slide over the bottom really well so that it doesn't, you know, the touch of something is important to people, but also the sound of it is important. And if you have something that sort of scrapes like that on a silver spoon or a stainless steel spoon, the sound of it can just be grating on your nerves. So you don't want to make anybody miserable while they're using your mug. So, I mean, this is just a small thing, but so many things go into making something by hand, especially something kind of, well, of course, it's creative making anything by hand, but you just want it to be a nice experience for the person. Okay, I think there's another one. Okay, now I'm going to do this one. So what was I talking about? Oh, the tea. Was I talking about tea? I don't remember. Well, anyway, earlier we were talking about tea. And why is there a little dot right in the center of that? That may be a disaster. I don't remember doing that. Ooh. I've got a little, you can hardly see that, but I may have a, when this one comes out of the kiln, it may have a big blowout right there. It looks like an air bubble that is strategically placed right in the center of the bottom. How weird. I mean, It's so well centered, it makes me think I did that on purpose. But we'll see. So anyway, about the tea, I drank my 2 cups of tea and then took, oh yeah, I was telling you where I went. I went to the Dollar Tree and got that. So, what'd you think about the monkey tea? Did anybody just go buy some while I was out so you could try it? It's interesting how that they do that, because those monkeys, you know, monkeys are smart and they have great manual dexterity, finite motor skills, and because if you've seen them at the zoo, they pick fleas off of each other with their little fingers, and big fingers, maybe little fingers, I don't know, but anyway, that is something that they do. And let's see, I need to mark this so I can say this batch has 1 coat on the inside. So I'm going to stick this over here, and then I'll put this tray over here. There we go. Whoops, I felt something wet. All right, now slide that, slide this. There we go. So I just think it's kind of cool that they trained those monkeys to do that. So I guess if they have, you know, monkeys in one field that are doing, you know, harvest at a particular time, I wonder how they keep the monkeys straight. Like, how do they communicate to them that I want you to pick it at 3 months, not 6 months? You know, of course, monkey will look at them like they're crazy, and they'll go, "You evolved from us?" No, I don't think so. Monkeys are fun to watch. They're so uninhibited. They're not shy, and you don't have to wonder what they're thinking. In some ways, I wish people would be more like monkeys and just speak their mind and get it over with, than to do some of the things that humans do. There we go. Okay. And this jar is sea mist. I use my old, sometimes the Mako jars are wide at the mouth, and so you can mix other glazes that you get in dry form. You can mix them up and store them in your recycled Mako jars. I wish that Opulence would change the shape of their jars, because first of all, they put a child-proof lid on it that I've saved a few of them, but when I first started using that, I about killed my hands trying to wrestle the plastic apart on those to get it where it was something that I could open. And but you know, after I got a few empty, or well, actually then I started buying it in bulk and dry form, and managed to save a couple of Mako jars so I could put it in there. I just thought, God, I probably grossed you guys out, because monkeys pick fleas off of each other, but you know, then they're down there in in the tea plantation or whatever it is, whatever you call that, tea orchard, picking our tea, and we're drinking tea from tea leaves that they pick. This happened to me a long time ago. This may be dry enough for the second cup. Doesn't take long when the weather's really, really dry. So here I take 99 trinket boxes to this public studio to have them, to fire them. So now in this studio, they had a person who loaded the kiln. And it was somebody supposedly with experience. And that's the reason that they didn't want the participants in, just the, well, they had to have rules just, I guess, for quality control, which is kind of a misnomer in this case. But, so I take my stuff down there, and I was getting ready for an exhibit, and all I was gonna take were trinket boxes. I love making trinket boxes. I don't know if I've made any since this happened, but so anyway, I took them to the studio and put them in queue to be fired. And it cost $1 per piece or per item to fire stuff at the studio, and that was just so that to cover costs of electricity and stuff, and that was in addition to whatever you were paying for your space and use of the studio. So I keep bumping into the cabinet. So I took my 99 pieces, 99 trinket boxes. That means there were 99 lids and 99 the bottom part of the box. So I went to pick them up. The guy called me and said they were done, and he knew I was going to an exhibit and so forth. So I go down and pick them up, and they're all packed in a box and wrapped up with paper and everything. Now, I thought that was nice. But it was awfully suspicious because usually they just call you and tell you your stuff is done. You go get it, but you have to pack it up yourself. So I go down there, and just for kicks, I unwrapped one and put the lid on it, and it wouldn't fit. The lid would not fit the bottom that it went to. So I said, well, what happened here? And so the guy kind of turned red in the face, and he said, and I said, didn't you fire these together with the lid on like you're supposed to? And he said, oh, and he named the other person that's in there, supposedly somebody who's kind of in charge and has other duties, but was also somebody who had seniority at the studio. And he said, well, so-and-so came by and told me to fire them separately and to count each, the lid and the bottom, as one piece. And I didn't care how much they charged me, because at the time I didn't own a kiln, and I didn't really care about the cost at the time. I mean, I hadn't even thought about it. But they did, and in order to make double the money on the firing, they fired them separately, and none of those lids fit. I went ahead and took them home. I thought, well, I'll dig through here and see if I can find enough that if I sand the gallery, maybe I can make them work for maybe I can salvage something. And it was hopeless. It was a complete, total loss. It took me most of the summer to make those and trim them. And that was a fall exhibit that I was going to. And not to mention that I had paid the fee for firing, and I didn't even ask. I was so mad I could just hardly see straight. And before I left with them, before I left the studio, I chewed the guy out and told him, "Don't you know these are always supposed to, better than this. These are supposed to." Well, there was a bit of politics going on in that studio, and there were some people there that were younger than me who were a little bit maybe threatened. And because I knew the guy that owned the place, I'd known him for years, and I think they were feeling like they were getting kind of pushed out of the way, and because in favor of me. Well, that wasn't happening any place other than in their mind, because I was still working full time. I wasn't even there very much. But it was such a disappointment. I was just so upset. So I lost money because I paid for it's like 100 and what? So 9 be 118. That's a lot of money. Anyway, nearly $200, I think, was what it cost to do that. So that is the impetus when I bought my first kiln. That is the reason why. I never went back there to fire anything. In fact, I didn't even go back to I could see, I noticed a little bit of damage to some of my pottery when everybody else's stuff would turn out gorgeous and not stick to a shelf or something. But it seemed like every pot that got fired of mine had a shelf stuck to it when it came out. And so that was so disheartening. And they just shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, I guess we need to clean the kiln shelves." Well, they never cleaned the kiln shelves. And that was part of their job. That was part of what the maintenance or the firing fee was for, was to maintain the stuff. Okay, those have 2 coats on it now. See how you can get mixed up? Because this has 1. Wait, that has 2 now. This one over the jewelry box here has 2. And now these have 2. Okay, so I'll mark this. This has 2. And I'll just go right back over here to these, because the first coat, let me move this real quick. Can't drop my cookie jar because it's full of cookies. There. So anyway, I didn't even go back to the studio to get the last pots that I ever made that were just still hanging around in there, I guess. And because I was just so upset. And I kind of feel like that was done on purpose. And it was just a real shame. There were 2 ladies who were about my age. I mean, I was a school teacher there, and some of those younger girls in there were students, former students of mine, who were in college and taking classes at the university, and they were going to that studio to have extra time that wasn't at the university. It's a private university, and they kind of locked the place down earlier than we locked this place down. So I don't know, I just felt like it was malicious, and by cracky, I wasn't going to pay for somebody to be mean to me, so the only time I felt like those last few years that I was teaching, that in the evenings, my dad was very sick, and I would get phone calls from him, and I wasn't in the same city. He wasn't even in a city because he lived on a ranch out in the middle of nowhere, but it was so stressful because I knew he was getting older and he wouldn't let me help. He needed somebody to be there, and he wouldn't let anybody help him. So in order to cope, and to cope with the stress of teaching, I would go to the studio in the evenings and just throw. And then, you know, maybe on a Saturday, if I had time, I would go glaze my pots and put them in the queue to be fired. And I never put any pressure on anybody to get mine done in a hurry or anything. Well, a lot of people came in there and said, oh, this is a rush job. And nobody likes to hear that in a pottery studio, because everything, you start making mistakes when you try to rush something through. Everything in its own time for pottery. So anyway, so then I got my own kiln and started working at home. I enjoyed the company there, though. It was most of the time, especially in the evenings after school, it was other adults, and they were friendly, and we helped each other with stuff. It was pretty fun. It kind of helped me cope with everything I was coping with. My mother was sick at the same time, and my stepmother was failing as well. So it's just a lot of stress. Plus, I was thinking about retiring, but I was afraid I didn't have enough money to retire yet, and so I felt like I had to just keep working as long as I could, as long as I was physically able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to scrape that back in there and throw my brush over here in the sink. And so those all have 2 coats on them now. And this is going to take a little bit longer to dry because it's thicker now. So let me take this, and I'm just going to get that little sloppy place right there. We go. And we'll just go around there. There we go. Okay, so okay, we got some good looking stuff there. Nice looking, neat looking stuff. I just hope those rims come out the way I think they will. Nice and toasty like the other ones. So, okay, I'm going to cut this off now, and this video may end up being in 2 parts because I have just rambled on telling you stories and stuff. So, I will talk to you soon or in the next video. Love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.